High-level overview. In this powerful and heartfelt conversation, John Reeves explores the harrowing, heroic, and healing aspects of fatherhood, loss, and legacy. With unflinching honesty, he discusses the death of his son and the unexpected journey it launched, one that transformed his understanding of masculinity, faith, and what it means to be a man in the face of unbearable grief. This episode is steeped in raw emotion, vulnerability, and spiritual reckoning, offering listeners an invitation to sit with pain, reflect on purpose, and find redemption in unexpected places. The flow of the discussion oscillates between deeply personal storytelling, theological insight, and practical wisdom. From the trenches of tragedy to moments of quiet reflection, Reeves speaks not as a preacher, but as a father, navigating unimaginable loss, guiding others through the wilderness with honesty and grace. This is a summary of 2271 John Reeves from the Joe Rogan Experience, where we break down the key insights, ideas, and takeaways from this content, giving you the gist so you can decide if you want the rest. The full summary is available on perfectsummary.com, and you can listen to the podcast Perfect Summary on all major platforms or watch it on YouTube at Official Perfect Summary. The discussion explores the emotional and spiritual weight of losing a child and how it reshapes a father's identity. How John Reeves learned to embrace vulnerability and grief as a pathway to healing. Why the cultural definition of masculinity often fails men in their deepest moments of pain. The theological and relational insights John gained from walking through tragedy with his family and God. How one man's heartbreak became the doorway to a new mission, helping other men navigate sorrow and step into their true selves. Embracing grief as a father and a man. John Reeves shares the story of his son's death with profound sincerity. It's not a tale polished for public consumption. It's raw, broken, and sacred. As he revisits the day he lost his child, John talks about the disorientation that followed. The feelings of guilt, helplessness, and numbness weren't just emotional. They were physical, spiritual, existential. But perhaps more important than the pain itself is how he chose to respond to it. He did not bottle it up or mask it behind toxic stoicism. Instead, he allowed himself to weep, to crumble, and to rebuild. John reveals how critical it was to grieve honestly and publicly, not just for his own healing, but to show others, especially men, that real strength isn't in silence, but in surrender. He emphasizes that grief is not linear. Some days you feel functional, others like you're drowning, and both are valid. Redefining strength and masculinity. One of the most profound insights from this conversation is John's critique of modern masculinity. In many circles, men are conditioned to suppress, to isolate, to perform resilience rather than embody it. But after his son's death, John realized that this version of masculinity is not just flawed, it's dangerous. It prevents men from accessing the very tools they need to heal: vulnerability, community, and spiritual intimacy. He argues that biblical manhood isn't about being bulletproof. It's about being present. It's about holding your family while you cry. It's about collapsing into God's arms when yours are too tired. This reframing invites a more authentic and embodied masculinity, one that allows men to be fully human without shame. Faith in the midst of the wilderness. The theological depth of the episode is another standout. John doesn't sugarcoat the spiritual disillusionment that can come with tragedy. He describes moments of silence from God, prayers that felt unanswered, and faith that wavered. And yet, amidst the despair, he discovered a God who was still near, not fixing everything instantly, but walking with him. He draws parallels between his experience and the biblical wilderness. Just as Israel wandered lost and dependent, John learned that pain can be holy ground. His relationship with God deepened not in spite of grief, but through it. He challenges listeners to stop seeking quick fixes to suffering and instead lean into it, because that's often where transformation begins. Turning pain into purpose. Eventually, John's story becomes more than a memoir of loss. It's a mission. Out of his heartbreak came a calling, to help other men reclaim their souls. He speaks about starting small groups, writing and speaking publicly, not to showcase his pain, but to normalize it. His passion is to create spaces where men can be honest without fear of judgment. John believes that vulnerability is contagious. When one man opens up, it gives others permission to do the same. In this way, healing becomes communal, and pain becomes purposeful. He emphasizes that you don't have to have all the answers to be helpful. Sometimes the greatest ministry is just sitting with someone in silence, bearing witness to their sorrow. A father's lasting legacy. The final chapters of the conversation center on legacy, not just what we leave behind when we die, but what we impart while we live. John reflects on how his son's life, though brief, was not wasted. Every memory, every tear, every tribute is a seed of meaning. He talks about the letters he's written, the lessons he's recorded, and the hopes he still carries for his other children. For John, legacy isn't about public achievement. It's about private faithfulness. It's being the kind of father who shows up, who apologizes, who laughs, who weeps. It's modeling a faith that doesn't require perfection, only presence. That's a wrap on 2271 John Reeves. This episode is a courageous and compassionate guide for anyone navigating grief, fatherhood, or spiritual uncertainty. It's not a roadmap out of pain, but a reminder that we don't have to walk through it alone. This summary came from perfectsummary.com, your go-to for podcast recaps, book breakdowns, and video summaries that give you the gist so you can decide if you want the rest. You can listen to the Perfect Summary podcast on all major platforms or watch our content on YouTube at Official Perfect Summary.